Welcome to the fifth and final breakout session, which is Beat the News Cycle. Before I introduce our two wonderful speakers, has anyone here seen the new movie Wonder Woman? Okay, well, I'm like completely obsessed with this movie, and if you haven't seen it, I know a lot of you have a long bus ride home, so you have a great chance to watch it. There is a specific scene in this movie that always stands out to me in an incredible way, and it's when Diane, who is also known as Wonder Woman, is walking through the trench to go fight in this war. And when she's walking through this trench, she's ready to go, she's on a mission, and a young lady who is in clothes, she's tattered and she's torn, and she reaches out to Wonder Woman and she says, "Help me. Please help me. If you do not help me, I will die. We will die." Ladies and gentlemen, if the babies in the womb could speak to us today, they would be saying the same thing. They would say, "Help me. If you do not, we will die." We ought to hear their cry. And I'm very excited and very honored to introduce our next two speakers because they have heard this cry and they have said yes. They fight in strategic ways to defend the preborn. One of those very strategic ways is when it comes to news and it comes to media, because as most of us know in this room, the media is not often on our side. How much of the March for Life did they show? Not very much. But these two that come before us are going to tell us how to beat that cycle. So please join me, and I am honored to introduce Ryan Bomberger, founder of Radiance Foundation, and Lila Rose, founder and president of Live Action.
Whew. Anybody awake in here? That wasn't convincing. Let's try it again. Anybody awake in here? Okay. It's awesome to be here. Thank you, Students for Life. It's an honor to be part of this incredible movement that is fighting truly the human rights issue of our day. My name is Ryan Bomberger. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of the Radiance Foundation, and I'm going to talk to you today about reactions. In fact, I guess if we get the presentation up here, I want to talk to you about causing the reaction instead of being the reaction. Who likes to cause reactions in here? Come on. About half of you. Come on, this is what we need to do. Instead of being in a reactive mode all the time, I want us to be the ones causing the reaction. Can we get the presentation? Are we good? Okay, because I need to show you some things here so that I can talk to you about being the person who causes the reaction. There we go. I want you to cause the reaction. See, what ends up happening is we are the ones who often are the ones who get burned. We want to be the ones who are applying the heat, not the ones who are getting burned. So I have this, it might be a little cheesy, but I'm just going to do it anyway. I have this acronym. It's BAKE. Anybody in here like to bake? Anybody here like to eat what's been baked? Yes. Yes. So I'm going to talk to you about BAKE. And the first one, B, is be a factivist. Say it with me, factivist. Now, some of you might be wondering, what is a factivist? There's a huge difference between an activist and a factivist. We have a culture right now that acts too many times without the facts. We have to understand that emotions don't set us free. Truth does. In fact, I want to just give you a little introduction here into the difference between an activist and a factivist. Just play the first video here.
Planned Parenthood does not at all profit from fetal tissue donation.
Planned Parenthood has been involved in selling the body parts of the babies that they abort for decades now at this point.
Yes, people, who wants to be a factivist? Let me see your hands. This is what we do. In fact, we have this great mission, and this is what we do through the Radiance Foundation. We fight factophobia. You've heard of all kinds of phobias that our society is facing, but this is an actual real phobia. Fight factophobia. And say this with me. Say, truth ain't hate. Let love illuminate. See, this is why we are compelled to do what we do. It's not because, oh, I'm smarter than you, or I know more than you. It's because I love you, I'm going to speak the truth. Not just speak it, by the way. I'm going to live it. And so this is what we do. We love people enough to tell the truth. And we got a culture out there who has such an aversion to the truth, but we can't be silent. We perhaps may have just those few ordinary words that will help set somebody free. Now, in that BAKE acronym, the other one is A, and I love this. A is agitate. Agitate, say it with me. Agitate, agitate, agitate. That was good. That came from Frederick Douglass, who was a former slave and abolitionist, who said the way that we address injustice is to agitate, agitate, agitate. The status quo is never changed by those who say nothing and do nothing. And oftentimes it's left to just a remnant of people, just a small minority of people. And I'm fine with that, because sometimes that small minority, many times it's that small minority that revolutionizes things. We have to agitate, agitate, agitate. Words are revolutionary. Words change everything. The tongue has the power to speak life and to speak death. Now, as a creative professional, I worked in ad agencies for years. I understand words are powerful, and also the design that those words go in is powerful. But yet so many times, we give like this much time and thought to design. We have an idea and we just quick throw it down on paper. We put, 50 different fonts to it, and we think, oh, okay, that's good. No, design speaks to people. Messaging is everything. Could you imagine if lawyers decided just moments before they went into a courtroom, hey, let's talk about our legal strategy before we go in here. We got 2 minutes, let's just do this. It doesn't work that way. And the same way when it comes to your messaging, man, you got to spend a little bit of time. Because you got to cut through. On college campus, do you have a lot of noise you have to cut through? None? We have to cut through noise all the time, whether you're on campus or whether you're some of us older folks who are not on campus anymore. There's a lot of garbage to cut through. And how are you going to do that? How are you going to get noticed? How are you going to cause a reaction? And so when I talk about meshes is everything, there's 3 things I just want to encourage you to focus on. One is concision. Sometimes we feel like we have to speak brochures worth. No, you don't. Brevity is beautiful. So concision. The other is context. Give people context to understand what the issue is. That's why we're here. That's why we have to educate ourselves. We have to be able to give people the context so that they understand things in a much better way. That brings clarity. So we got concision, context, and clarity. And no, some of you perhaps in here have shared a meme at some point. Anybody, by show of hands, have you ever shared a meme? Is there anybody in here who does not know what a meme is? Are you serious? Okay, it's a little graphic or video that has a little caption. It's funny or interesting sometimes. That's a meme. And we love, through the Radiance Foundation, to show and create all kinds of different memes. They speak volumes to people. But you got to figure out, sometimes you just take what is being said, just twist it just a little bit. Like some of these. I love when we're able to especially take the words of the other side and turn it back on them. Like this was our series called our pro-choice multiple personality disorder thing, the multiple personality disorder of pro-choice activism. And it gave examples. You know how on Twitter they, hashtag shout your abortion, right? But it's amazing because on one hand they're always talking about, oh no, abortion is such a personal decision. Such a personal decision. And on the other hand, shout my abortion, Twitterverse. This is what happens all the time. Point out the hypocrisy. Point out the ridiculousness. And quite honestly, even though we're dealing with the most crucial human rights issue of our day, we can point out the lunacy of the other side's ideology. And quite honestly, have fun with it. The other thing we do is we take, even their slogans sometimes. Like Planned Parenthood's slogan, of course, is care no matter what. We have these great fact sheets that are at the table in the back, right outside the doors here to the left. Their slogan is care no matter what, but it's really less care no matter what. When you talk about all their services, every major medical service to women in the past 10 years since Cecile Richards took over as the president of Planned Parenthood, every major medical service to women has been plummeting. But no one wants to talk about that. And so whether they're in memes or whether they're in fact sheets, we have to cause a reaction by knowing what we're talking about, by doing the research and coming up with a strategy and how to communicate that. Now, When my wife and I started the Ratings Foundation a few years ago, we started in Atlanta, Georgia. My wife's her whole family's from New York City. She's from the Northeast. She lived in New York City and then in Connecticut. I'm from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Anybody here from PA? Wow, 2 people. Anybody in here from PA? Anybody here Amish? Okay, I don't think so. I grew up in Amish country, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And we were living in Atlanta at the time. We decided that we were going to take 2 of the easiest issues possible, race and abortion, combine them, and put billboards around that talked about the hugely disproportionate impact of abortion in the black community, where abortion rates are up to 5 times higher. See, sometimes when you're trying to take on some issues, sometimes take on the most obvious. I mean, a breast cancer campaign, who are they geared toward, men or women? Does anybody know? Say it. Women. Men also experience that as well. But who's the hardest hit demographic? Women. And yet there had never been an ad campaign dealing with the demographic hardest hit statistically by abortion. So here we place these billboards. In fact, I'm going to show you some of these billboards that we placed in Atlanta. If we just roll this other video. So we weren't loved by mainstream media at the time. I mean, it was just insane response. Mainstream media responded with, of course it was racist, because it's racist to want to save black babies somehow. I'll never forget when NPR was doing a story, they were interviewing me offline. They interviewed me for about 45 minutes, and then when the piece came out online, I know a lot of you listen to NPR. But anyway, it's called All Things Considered. So in the 3.5 minute piece, the campaign that I designed, the campaign that the Ratings Foundation released, working in conjunction with Georgia Right to Life, who funded the billboards, they omitted me from the entire story. Like, how do you cut out the person who created it and the organization that launched it? But this is what mainstream media does. They do this all the time. And they called it racist. Of course they're going to call it racist because we've lost sense of what racism even means. What's the ultimate end to racism? Throughout American history, what has been the ultimate end of racism? Death. What is abortion? So I speak on a lot of college campuses, and I'm not going to say it's amusing, but I'm struck when I hear how America is more racist today than it's ever been in American history, which I was told that by one of the students who said that, yes, it's more racist today than it was in the 60s. And I said, did you think about that while you're riding in the back of the bus on the way to the event? Ridiculous. No, America is not more racist, but I will tell you, racism is alive and tragically well. And I hear all these buzz phrases in these college campuses, and I love the Q&A, systemic racism. Let me tell you what I think systemic racism is. Systemic racism is a government-funded organization that disproportionately kills black lives. How about that for a definition? In fact, we're responding to a billboard campaign in the state of Ohio where Ohio's largest abortion facility, Preterm, put out these billboards that said, abortion is, and then had a fill in the blank. Abortion is sacred. Abortion is a blessing. Abortion is necessary. They put out 16 billboards with all these messages. So this is our response. We'll have 10 different messages that will go up. This is one of them. Abortion is systemic racism. This is where we have to take what is actually happening, take their words and throw them back. We're talking actuality. And so we have to be confident in that. So the other part of the BAKE, the K stands for, and this is hard, especially when you get interviewed, know it, don't blow it. You can't go into a media interview. I don't care whether it's local news or if it's mainstream media. Don't go into it not knowing what you're talking about. How many of you have ever been interviewed by local news media, even campus media? You gotta know what you're talking about because they're hoping that you don't. They're hoping that you're gonna be afraid. They're hoping that they're gonna trap you because you all know that they're really not your friends. There are some who actually act like journalists, but for the most part, we all know, fake news. And it's painful because I know the hashtag might seem funny, but it's actually so destructive and dangerous when you have a news media establishment that refuses to tell the truth. But you've got to go in there knowing what you're talking about. Anticipate what they're going to ask. Know the interviewer. Take a few moments and actually read some of their articles or watch some of their videos or interviews so that you can actually know who they are. You feel a little more comfortable going into that. Know the other side's responses and just understand they might smile, but there's a whole lot of hostility many times behind that smile. I want to give you an example because if you don't do your homework, unfortunately, you've got like that soundbite. You have those few moments to respond, and you don't ever want to look back and say, oh my gosh, what if I had just said? You don't need to be in that situation. You respond as briefly as you can or as informed as you can. Here's an example from MSNBC, and yes, it is like bootleg video, but I just want to give you an example of responding to something and throwing, the interviewer off. We can just roll this next little video.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask you one more thing. The bill under consideration in New Mexico that would criminalize abortions after rape as, quote, tampering with evidence. Are some states taking the fight too far?
The issue there is that you had Representative Catherine Brown who wanted to protect women who are often forced into abortions by the rapist. And that's part of the discussion that's never had. We don't talk about how do we punish these rapists? How do we keep them from forcing women and young girls into these situations?
The women would potentially be sent to prison.
No, that's a mischaracterization of the law. It's complete mischaracterization of the law. In fact, it was reworded so that it was unambiguous as to protect women. It says, in fact, that the mother of the child will never be prosecuted. So that's a mischaracterization. The issue here is that we talk about protecting women, and any measure that's ever put forward, any pro-life protection, is always fought vehemently against by the pro-abortion lobby. And they've shown themselves not to want to protect women and children. In case after case, Kermit Gosnell in Philadelphia, same case, an abortionist for 10 years who was maiming and killing women, delivering babies alive and snipping their necks. But who spoke up for the women there? Right. The pro-abortion side didn't. So I think these mischaracterizations don't help inform the American public as to what's really going on with the issue.
March for Life. Ryan, thank you so much. We are out of time. I do appreciate you spending so much of your time with us on this Saturday, though.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it.
Up next,
See, they will. I have never been invited back to MSNBC again. And you know what? It's okay. Don't let them trap you. The other part of this little acronym here, BAKE, is the E. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a story. We have to learn how to better personalize this issue and relay those stories. And we have to remember, too, that one message doesn't fit all. I think sometimes we try so desperately. Everyone's got to be reached and impacted by this. It's got to resonate with everybody. No, it doesn't. It can resonate with just some, and that's okay. The other part of that is stop worrying about, now I'm saying this, I know, millennials, college campuses, all kinds of microaggressions and triggering, but stop worrying about offending everybody and everything. Yes, you can just clap to that. Because I will tell you, courage causes reaction. And just to give you my own story, since I'll personalize this, I was adopted into a family of 15. I have 12 other siblings. 10 of us are adopted. And we had 10 courageous birth moms who chose to be stronger than their circumstances. Beautiful, beautiful example of courage. I never met my birth mom, but I also try to personalize my own story and try to figure out how can I relay the bravery of my birth mom? How do I say all the things that I've been able to become by the grace of God because of her singular decision? And this is what you guys are impacting. You're impacting singular decisions that will have reverberations for generations. And although I've never met my birth mom, if I were to, as a creative, I try to figure out, how do I show this kind of gratitude? So I came up with this tribute to my birth mom, and this is the reason why I love to cause reactions. It's not because of a logo. Oh, I'm sorry, the video. Video.
You couldn't see what I would be. It wasn't part of your plan. Stronger than your circumstance, you gave my life a chance, touching the future before it began. You're the reason I am here. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose.
Be the one to cause a reaction. Thank you, guys.
I love that. Thank you, Ryan. It's awesome to be here with all of you and to be here to learn together and strategize and brainstorm how we can best advocate for life. And it is with a heavy heart. I was driving over here, and the anniversary, of course, is this coming up in just a couple days here, and we just marched for life yesterday. And I just want to put it out there again. We are mourning. We are mourning 60 million of our unborn brothers and sisters. But we are also celebrating, because I've heard stories even of work happening on campuses represented in this room, and I hear stories all the time of the lives that are being saved and of the women choosing life and the men standing up for life. So let's just continue to keep that inspiration point in front of us, because it is a hard fight that we're in, but we are fighting for something so beautiful, so great, so amazing, which is life. And that's why I'm in this fight, like all of you, and I want to share with you a few pointers about media, specifically talking whether it's campus media or it's talking with mainstream media or whomever, and then also some points just about education. Because I think the key heart of our movement is, yes, we have to fight for public policy, we have to change the law, we want to overturn Roe v. Wade, we want to do those things, but we have to change hearts and minds. We have to find ways to reach the people on our schools, on our campuses, in our churches, in our families sometimes, among our friends, or people who aren't our friends yet, because that's the way that we fill the seats around us. That's the way that we bring people into the movement. And if we're going to end abortion in our lifetime, if we're going to stop the killing, if we're going to transform the way our country sees life, we have to transform hearts and minds. So this is a battle in the sense that there's controversy, there's conflict, we're going to be labeled extremists, there's this fight to expose the truth and tell the truth in the face of the lies, but we're also doing this for the people that don't agree with us yet, right? That's the point. And so what I want to talk to you about in the next few minutes is some of those just kind of along the lines of what Ryan said, his awesome points about how to just engage with media, but then also the broader point of how we can actually educate our campuses, how we can actually reach out and transform hearts and minds in our campus. And I went to UCLA, and I remember being on campus and kind of starting to talk with people, starting a live action chapter at the time, and realizing that a lot of students, the majority of students, didn't have a super strong opinion on abortion yet. Or if they thought they did, it wasn't backed up by a lot of thought, by a lot of personal time delving deep into why they had that position. It was more labels, or they were not part of the very loud pro-abortion group on campus. They were just kind of everyday students who were like, maybe I'm pro-choice, maybe I'm pro-life, I'm not sure, kind of an ambivalence or a questioning. And it was amazing how when we engage, and I remember engaging fellow students, when you kind of reach across the aisle, so to speak, and you come into the conversation without assumptions necessarily. You're asking questions, you're relating. Amazing how you can actually make inroads and how you can make progress in having someone come to a different point of view. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too. But first, some media tips, some of my favorite media tips, echoing some of what Ryan said. And I love doing media. I know some groups, some folks here maybe love it or you hate it. It's like the love-hate relationship, or you're like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified that they're going to have to talk to me. What if I screw it up? Those nerves are totally normal. It's just a matter of practicing and feeling prepped for it. And then, of course, if you're a Christian like I am, you can say a prayer. If you're not a Christian like I am, maybe become a Christian so you can say a prayer, or say a prayer anyways. That always helps. But here's some few points real quick on effective media. And this has helped me doing debates on CNN or Fox News, although they're really much nicer on Fox News than on CNN. That's fine. Or talking to, left-wing media, as they say, or abortion media. I don't like the label left-wing versus right-wing, by the way. I think that can be very misleading. But anyways, regardless of who talking to, these are some tips that have really helped me. First of all, kind of what Ryan was saying, decide ahead of time. What are the most important things I want to communicate? What are my top 3 points? And write them out word for word. This is what Brian was saying, to the point of precision. Really know, what is it exactly? What's the most important thing for me to communicate? Don't get too caught in the weeds. What do I want printed on the front page of the New York Times? What's the thing that I think is going to actually convince people and persuade people about why this is the most important human rights issue, about why my group is active on campus, about why we're fighting to expose the truth about abortion, about why we're fighting for moms, for women? What's the best way to say that? And write it down, say it over a few times. You might say it differently when you're being interviewed, but have that as your starting point. What's the most important thing? Maybe you have a statistic in there. Maybe one of your points is a very short story, telling the story of someone. Maybe if your interview is going to be about hard cases like rape or incest, tell a short line story about someone who was conceived in rape but has value, and kind of humanize it that way. But whatever you do, make sure you have your top 3 points. This is what I want my interview to be about, because your interviewer might have another agenda and might try to steer you off course. And that's my next point. If they ask you a question, which they're probably going to do, that isn't really a fair question, shall we say, meaning they're kind of trying to put you in a box or lead you down a path that's not fair. And if they ask you a question like that, like, why are you so against women's rights, as an example, or I've actually been asked questions similar to that on channels like CNN, why are you just so opposed to women's rights? Or I've been asked, why do you have this myopic campaign against Planned Parenthood? I'm like, well, let me tell you something. So one way to redirect is, first you have to redirect that question, that biased question, to get to your talking point. So you can just say, well, I think what's missing here is, so you're kind of acknowledging their question, but you're saying, you're missing something. I'm not even going to really answer that question head on because it's a biased question. You're effectively saying that. You're not saying all those words just that way, but you're basically saying, well, what's missing here is, or find a way to divert the question to your point. The real problem here is, and then your talking point. Or the real reason we're doing this on the campus right now, or the real reason that we're standing up for life, or whatever it is this point. So don't feel like you have to answer their question head on. Find a way to redirect it, because oftentimes their question is phrased poorly. And if they lean in on you and be like, that question is not phrased correctly, I think that the real issue is, and then you can again lean in. Don't be afraid of an aggressive, maybe campus group or reporter. Go in there, and if you have your facts, the things you want to say, stick to what you want to say. Another thing that's really important in interviews, especially whether you're talking to folks on campus or if you're doing local TV or whatever it is to come in there, and obviously the person might be trying to be nice at first to maybe make you feel comfortable, so you start saying all these things that they'll take out of context. But go in there and be yourself, and be comfortable in your skin, and smile. Be someone that is happy and joyful that you're a part of the movement. Show that love in your face and in the way that you communicate with them. And that goes a long way in just disarming the people that might be watching you later, or even be a memory in the mind of the person that's interviewing you or the people around you while you're being interviewed. I think that's really important. Our demeanor, as much as the words that we are saying, our body language, that we are someone that is delivering this message because we care, because we have love in our hearts, because we want to fight for what's right. And that attitude, that demeanor that you have, is almost as important as the actual literal words that you say. So those are just a few points, and I'd be happy we'll talk more in question and answer, but we've got limited time, so I want to run on to some broader points, which I think are even more important and more applicable for all of us, whether we're in a media interview or not. And these are broader points just about educating people or reaching people with our message. So it might not be through traditional media, it's probably gonna be through social media, through conversations we have in person, at events that we create for our campus, that we want other students to come to. Maybe we're on our, for me it was Bruin Walk, the pathway running through campus, and I had a booth up and we're trying to engage people. Whatever it is, some broader points. First of all, labels can confuse. So if you're engaging with someone on abortion, they're like, I'm pro-choice, or whatever, I support abortion rights, however they want to say it. Don't assume that they actually really do. Or they might say, well, I'm a liberal, or so I'm a Democrat, so I must be pro-choice, or whatever. Don't assume that just because they have a label that they might think equals abortion rights, or they have a label that even is abortion rights, that's really 100% of what they believe. When polling has been done on this, people who call themselves pro-life in our country often have a ton of exceptions to abortion, many of those people, meaning they want some abortions to be legal, and people who call themselves pro-choice in our country, some of them, want abortion to be illegal, in some ways even more than subgroups of the pro-life people. So what I'm trying to say is, bottom line, when it comes to a label, you just don't know where the person's really at. So go past the label. Don't assume, ask questions. You want to, when you're engaging with someone one-on-one, you want them to talk more than you. You want them to be almost, in a way, thinking aloud what they think about abortion. Your questions are going to really be food for thought for that person, especially if they're someone who's intellectually honest or their guard is down because you're relating to them in a kind and a friendly manner. Some great apologetics books, and I know there's talks on apologetics at this conference, which are awesome. I think Trent Horn was here earlier. He's amazing. There's some great speakers out there like Trent, like Stephanie Gray, like Scott Klusendorf. Just some basic questions that you can make sure you're asking people when you're engaging them, and that can be transformative. Another thing is sow seeds. Keep in mind, if you engage with someone and after you discuss with them, or they come to your event, or they even see your table on campus or your display, and they just go off, or they're like, yeah, I disagree with you, sorry, I'm done, whatever. Don't assume that you didn't make an impact. Your demeanor of being someone cheerful and friendly and loving, your truth that you're sharing with that grace, and your willingness to engage, ask questions, really understand someone, where they're coming from, why they believe what they believe, asking those questions to help them see the humanity of the preborn, the violence of abortion, the danger it is to women. Your questions and your presence is powerful, and you're sowing seeds. For most people, conversion happens by degrees. It's not like the one moment they're hit on the head and then all of a sudden they're pro-life. Conversion happens by degrees, and it's our job to be patient and persevering in sharing the truth, whether it's on our Facebook wall, and we're sharing facts about pro-life, we're sharing Ryan's videos, we're sharing live action videos, we're sharing different videos, and we're also just sharing other normal things and different things about our lives or whatever we want to share. Whether it's that, or it's conversations we're having with friends, or activity in the pro-life group, those are all seeds that we're sowing. And so, especially if you're a person of faith, which I highly recommend, you can pray over those seeds that you're sowing, and let that rest, because people out there are going through a lot of different things. Often we don't even know the depths of people's stories. And remember that the thing that you said maybe years ago, when that person was even in high school or in college, maybe years later, they'll remember what you said. They'll remember maybe the video that you shared. They'll remember, and that can be transformative. I want to share with you a couple last things that I believe are extremely impactful, and then we'll go to questions, in transforming hearts and minds. Has anyone seen the abortion procedure videos narrated by Dr. Anthony Levatino? Awesome, a few of us. Okay, so these videos have over, I think, 100 million views now we're up to on Facebook and YouTube. So it's super exciting to see. These are the 4 most prevalent abortion procedures that are in our country, first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, and it's narrated by a former abortionist. So you kind of have the testimonial in there a little bit, somebody who actually was involved with abortion, so it's not preaching, and then you have the scientifically accurate, the medically accurate animations that are not scaring people because they're not actual imagery of abortion victims. Those are powerful and can be used, but these are medical animations. These videos we've seen and we've been testing are really powerful because it invites people to think about what abortion really is in a way without shutting them down, and it offers this testimony of a former abortionist who's saying, you can change too. And so I'm going to end with a video I want to share with you of people being impacted by watching this video, but the final point I want to leave you with is never, never, ever assume that somebody is lockstep in their position. And that activist on the other side that you might be facing down with, right? You're the factivist, they're the slacktivist, as Ryan says, or whatever it might be. They can change. Our movement is full of these incredible conversion stories. Norma McCorvey died last year. She was the Roe in Roe v. Wade. And she not only ended up becoming a pro-life activist, she converted to Christianity, and she spent the rest of her life on earth trying to fight to undo what she had on her heart, weighing on her heart, that she was the plaintiff in the Supreme Court case Roe v. Wade. Norma McCorvey, Bernard Nathanson, one of the founders of NARAL, was also an abortionist. He committed over 70,000 abortions, and then he ended up having a conversion, became a pro-life activist, converted to Christianity, had a powerful conversion. These stories are throughout our movement. You've had ex-abortion workers up here speaking to you. I mean, it's incredible. Cecile Richards, these people were facing off. Someone like Rachel Maddow, they could be the next conversion. So never forget that in all our engagements, the media person you're talking to who's so hostile and seems to be so biased, they could be the next conversion. And conversions happen through our prayer, through us telling the truth, and through our love, through us showing love to people while standing firmly and boldly in the truth that we know and the truth that we want to share. So this video is a sample of some of Live Action's campaigns. And if you haven't followed Live Action already online, please do. Instagram, Facebook, or online. We're creating good stuff for you to share, for you to use on your campuses to help transform hearts and minds. And in this video, what you're going to see is these abortion procedure videos are one tool that we use to show people, especially people on the fence or people who are maybe kind of pro-life but not fully, or who are pro-choice and figuring it out, to really give them that aha moment about what abortion really is. Because again, there's so much misunderstanding, and behind all the labels and all the barriers and the walls that people put up, there are people's personal stories and their wounds, and then there's also a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of misunderstanding. And so we need to actually recreate for people, show people what is abortion actually, what does it do to a child, how does it hurt a woman, and put that in, of course, the construct of human rights and what's best for humanity, what's most loving, what's most just. So these folks are on the West Coast. So our video team went to Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Washington State, Oregon, Portland, Oregon. And we figure, Live Action has an office in DC, we have an office on the West Coast. We figure that if we can change minds on the West Coast, we can change minds anywhere, right? If we can change minds in San Francisco, we're doing pretty good. I actually live in Berkeley, California, right outside of San Francisco, and I figure, look, this is where people would say, oh, they're so for abortion. If you can actually engage people and reach people here, no one is unreachable. These are exactly the people we need to be talking to. These are exactly the people we need to be reaching out to. So we're doing these interviews, and you'll see some of the responses of people who just didn't know the truth and now are beginning to see.
What do you think about abortion?
I'm like hella liberal, so it's like obviously I'm pro-abortion.
There are times when you do need abortion, and it's up to that person and their rights and what they want to do.
It's our body, it's our decision, right?
If you're young, it's probably a good thing. If you want to go to college, it's hard with a baby in college.
And would you identify as pro-life, pro-choice, or neither?
Pro-choice, for sure.
Oh my God.
I had no idea this is how abortion takes place, right? Looking at that video and the way it was performed, it's an eye-opener. So, no, I don't think any kid, any baby, any infant, any fetus should go through that. No.
I mean, it seems just in general, anytime you have to kill something, it's inhumane.
So are you saying this is a human life?
I mean, it's definitely present, you know? I mean, yeah, I guess, like, even if you can't afford to, if someone can take care of these babies, I guess, like, don't abort them, you know?
So the videos that you guys showed me has changed my mind. Yes, circumstances, it still makes it hard, but because of the video, I think I kind of have, like, a better idea.
And I felt bothered by it. Kind of like had a little change of mind of being middle of the road to saying maybe I would not be for abortion, no matter what, no matter what the circumstances are.
I had no idea the process was like that. But it seems like they're more humane when they put down animals.
And one word, your thoughts on what you saw?
It's actually really emotional.
And do you think after watching this video that you would still maybe support a law that would allow for exceptions in cases of rape or incest?
And this, I just think, I think that abortion is wrong in all cases. And maybe there should not be any laws with any exceptions.
After especially seeing this video, I realized, no, like, abortion is really wrong. Yeah, really, really wrong. Wow.
Would you say that this video changed your mind at all about abortion and your
Absolutely, absolutely. I've never seen it in detail like this. I will show this to my daughter, that this is how they abort children.
It's scary to see, and I hope I will never have to do that, or I will never do that from my point now.
So you changed your mind, it sounds like, from...
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. I mean, I could never say, like, not do an abortion for 100%, but probably 99%, yeah.
Before a law is passed, I think they should include videos such as the video that he showed us. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people would change their mind based on it.
There's so many other options apart from abortion, and I know it sucks and like the consequences and how it happened and why you might want an abortion, but there's always another option, and you just got to suck it up because it's a life.
So the last thing I want to say, then we'll go to questions, is part of this battle for the preborn, this battle to educate, this battle to change and transform our campuses, is also giving people permission to change. Giving people permission to change, because if we are approaching it in a spirit of hostility, or if we are going into there in order just to win the debate, right, as opposed to win the heart, then often that won't work. But we want to go in there and find ways to give people who might have a barrier up or might have a wound from a personal story. They've had an abortion, they've been involved with one, they've known someone who has, or they just don't know, and so they have a label they think they identify with, but it's not really thought out. We want to draw them into our movement, the truth, by giving them that permission in the way that we engage them, in the way that we respect them, and in the way that we boldly and lovingly share the truth. So excited to take your questions now.
All right, let's have a big round of applause for Ryan and Lila. Okay, I'm going to open the floor to you guys to raise your hand, and I'll come and he has a beach ball. He's very excited.
All right, so I feel like I just answered my own question, because I was going to say, how do you get the attention of news sources that won't cover you? And I realize I have this ball, and I've raised my hand a couple of times, and I haven't gotten a response, but I guess I held the ball up pretty crazily, you'd say, right? Yeah. And I got called on, so, cause and reaction. I guess, it's like what he said. He said, you do something, you make a reaction, and I made a reaction, and that's what got your attention, right? Okay, I think I answered my own question. I'm sorry.
Okay, do you guys have any comments, or do you want to have another question?
You got it. I mean, I think it's all about holding up the big purple ball right there. I think you're onto something. I mean, like Ryan was saying, and I'm sure you can speak to this, when you're thinking about creating a campaign, I know Ryan was talking a lot about that, we think about, what's something that's going to create controversy in the right way on campus to get the truth out there. It could be displays of abortion victims. It could be having a booth set up on campus and inviting people to take a survey to watch abortion procedure animation videos. It could be billboards like the amazing ones that Ryan has created. So groups like ours are doing stuff like that. We're happy to brainstorm with you guys. I know SFLA is always happy to brainstorm on ways to kind of inspire the campus, but creating an event like that is something way to get people to start to think and feel about this.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to be filled with a lot of hot air, so that works. It might be cool air there too, but it really proves that the unconventional is really the approach you have to take, because the world is used to the mundane. You get so desensitized to it. You've seen it so many times, you've heard it so many times, you don't even react to it anymore. So, carry a big inflatable with you.
So how do you...
Figuratively.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but how do you talk to the people who say the videos are edited, or you post them to your page, live action videos, and they say, oh, they've been, selectively edited in such a way that they're showing the pro-choice side in a bad way, or they're, like the Center for Medical Progress came out with those videos and they said, oh, they're all edited, even though they were proved to be fake. And the media just keeps sharing that narrative that they're fake, or the videos you put out, Lila, are fake, and how do we counter that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So obviously there's going to say about, especially investigative reporting and undercover videos, whether they're live actions or Center for Medical Progress, they're going to say, it's selectively edited. And you can say, well, actually the full footage is online, you can watch it, it was not selectively edited, these are the facts, and you can kind of go down the rabbit trail with them, especially if you have time to engage them, that even Cecile Richards admitted they're making, X amount of money, which they can't explain why that money is needed in the facilities to actually, when the baby body parts buyers come in and actually send middlemen, and so there's no cost no reason to explain those costs. So you can have those discussions, and there's ways to do that. And CMP, I know, has released a lot of statements explaining that and things that you could model after. Live Action has. One thing that I would also recommend is use a tool like the abortion procedure videos, because those are created by doctors. We had a board of OBGYNs and former abortionists who actually reviewed those. No one in the media has criticized those videos and said that they're inaccurate. No one can say they're deceptively edited. They are the accurate medical description of what happens during an abortion. And so there's really no debate, it's just a fact. So I think if the person's so obsessed with like, oh, the selectively edited, or they can't get off that tangent, you can obviously discuss it with them, but I would also recommend saying, well, let's just talk about abortion itself for a moment. What do you think about that? Do you think that's okay? And would you be willing to actually learn what happens during an abortion procedure to the embryo, to that preborn child?
First of all, I am a big fan of everything that Live Action does. I mean, they do the job that mainstream media refuses to do, journalism. I think it's funny. I mean, so true. One of the things that cracks me up about all the response to Center for Medical Progress, highly edited videos. We are exposed to highly edited content every day. It's called news. And news doesn't show you the full raw footage. So we just have to figure out little ways to respond to all that nonsense. But I'm so grateful for David Delight, who, by the way, was inspired by, an obscure little pro-life organization called Live Action. So there are a lot of great people being trained, and this is what we need to do. We need to train people to know how to go in there and expose these things, because our mainstream media will not do it. More questions? Anybody? Come on.
Oh, okay.
Before you ask the question, is there any way to put the audio from that particular mic in the monitors on the stage?
Yeah, it's very hard to hear.
It's hard to hear them.
It's okay.
I can just talk really loud if you want. So my question is kind of, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is kind of similar to that one, but I just wanted to ask you guys how you would deal with, I know you guys have a great presence in media, how you deal with negative criticism or people twisting your words and they're throwing it back at you. I know we've had some of our photos from our pro-life events edited to say we had adoption is the loving option. They changed it to abortion is the loving option, and things like that, or like personal attacks on yourself or your organization through the media. How do you deal with that, or recommend that we, as student organizations, should deal with that?
That's a great question. I would say perspective, 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 because it's really easy to get derailed by the negative feedback. And if we spend all day thinking about it or looking at it online, or you Google your name and you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't pretty or whatever, it's not gonna go over well for you. So I think thinking about it first in terms of, this is a fight for life. And I am not the one in danger. Children are the ones with lives in danger, and the women facing the abortion decision who are in maybe a position of coercion or abuse or whatever it is. So I think putting it in that perspective is so important, because then it's like the hits that you might feel you're getting kind of lose some of their power, because it's nothing compared to what other people are experiencing. So that part of perspective is important. And then the other part of perspective that's important is knowing that the reaction that you're having, when there's a negative reaction, it's often because you're really making people think and feel about this. And if you know in your conscience that you're doing it in a spirit of love, and you're doing it to the best of your ability, then that should be your shield, that should be your armor, because you are really out there trying to serve. And I think thinking about it in those terms are gonna help set us free from down the rabbit hole mindset of like, oh my gosh, look what they're saying online. And then have a good support group, I think, is the last thing. Have a friend you can confide in, have someone that you can trust, you can talk to when it's kind of weighing on you. And for me too, it's a relationship with Jesus, it's faith, it's knowing that God is my Savior, God is my love, and He's ultimately the one that gives me the courage and gives me the strength.
What she said.
Okay. Hi. So my question is that you continue to say we have to support these people, which I wholeheartedly agree with, but there's still this feeling of, especially with the youth, that we're very powerless still. And I just want to know, how can we continue with this strength? And how can we support those people who have been raped and who have to face these decisions, and who may be atheists and don't really believe in God? And just how can we avoid this from happening?
I'm sorry, the last part of your question, how can we do what? How can we?
And also, how can we avoid this from happening? What kind of steps can we continue to take so that we don't have to face this sort of thing, if there is a way?
Want me to take it?
Yeah, because she probably heard the question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I heard you. I mean, I think you're asking that, look, there's people out there that totally disagree. Maybe they're atheists. They think humans are, some people even there's sort of a misunderstanding, not all atheists, but some people think human beings are just like any other mammal or even like vegetables. I mean, there's a lot of misunderstanding and confusion out there. Or someone was raped and is considering abortion. How do I help them? I mean, those are heavy things, and those are extremely tough things. So keep in mind, there's not a silver bullet in apologetics, in conversation, in relationship to solve the problem of abortion, because it's very personal for many people. Obviously, we have to solve the law to protect children legally, and we have to work with the community pregnancy care movement and the healthcare movement, but when it comes to relationship, it's going to be about love, and sometimes that'll be the discussion to really ask the questions using apologetics to get them to see human life in the womb and life starts at conception, and sometimes it's just being there to care. If you have a friend who was a victim of assault and is struggling, to be there to get them the help they deserve and the resources that they need, and say that abortion's just gonna bring more pain. Abortion's another act of violence, not just against this child, but against you. And there's a plan, there's hope, and we can get through this together. I mean, it depends on the person, it'll depend on the relationship. So again, I would say, approach it in that spirit of love and spirit of thinking, okay, how can I serve this person in order to obviously help save this life and save future lives, and also help this person to see the truth about themselves and the value of this life.
And I would say, too, we have to understand that it's our natural inclination, or at least for many people, to think that abortion is the solution to rape. And what I found traveling across the country, meeting a lot of rape survivors, is they feel that rape is just the compounded violence. In fact, it's almost, the abortion is the compounded violence. They feel that abortion is almost, in essence, another rape, because something is taken from them, stripped from them. There's a death that occurs, and just like the rapist, the abortionist doesn't stay with them. The abortionist abandons them as well. I know there's some resources. There's the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, which I'm leery of recommending them. It's RAINN.org, I believe, because they don't really say they're pro-abortion, but every one of their spokespeople are pro-abortion. There are pregnancy centers that can actually deal with the counseling, because we have to understand that that person still needs to heal. But we have to understand that promoting or suggesting abortion, which is violence, is not that way to heal. I think there are better resources in optionline.org, pregnancy-decision-line.org. They can still refer them to counseling that they can get for that healing. Whether you're atheist or a Christian, these centers serve everyone.
One last word, because I know we're pretty much out of time. Don't be discouraged. Don't give up. Sometimes the weight of the world, when we think about abortion, think about what's happening in our country, think about all the problems we see on our campuses and amongst our friends or amongst those who disagree. It can feel overwhelming because there is so much confusion, hurt, and death out there. That is the reality. But we have to keep in our hearts, use it as the emblem of our hearts, the symbol of our hearts, what the beautiful thing that we're fighting for. And we have to hang on to that for ourselves. We have to live our lives to the fullest and pursue that health for ourselves, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and live it, model it for others. And if that becomes our focus as we serve, as we go out there and try to share the truth, then we ourselves become that living witness of what it means to be pro-life and what it means to defend life. Thanks, everybody.